Hey, Eric, how's it going?
How's it going, Ed?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good. So, Eric, in case people don't know, you and I are Devils fans, correct?
Some people may know that, yes.
Some people may know that. So, this is a Devils podcast that I wanted to start.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to describe a Devils defenseman to you.
All right, this should be fun. I know like 4 of those.
Yeah, and I want to see if you can guess who it is.
All right.
Stay at home,
Mm-hmm.
not very flashy with his game, just an overall solid defender.
Should I say Ben Lovejoy and make everyone mad?
You can say Ben Lovejoy.
All right, I'm going to hold off. Give me some more hints.
Kind of, was on a team that went to the Stanley Cup Finals.
Okay, I'm feeling more and more like it's Ben Lovejoy.
It's not Ben Lovejoy.
All right.
And he wore the number 6.
That kind of makes it a little easy.
Who do you think I'm talking about?
Well, Andy Greene.
What if I told you I'm not talking about Andy Greene? What if I told you there was another defender who played exactly like Andy Greene before Andy Greene?
Andy Greene's father?
Not Andy Greene Sr. No. I'm talking about Tommy Albelin.
Tommy Albelin.
Yes. We're going to talk about him today, and this is Know Your Devils. Well, Eric, this is episode 1. I have honestly no idea what I'm doing. Do you have any idea what you're doing?
No, none at all, but we're doing it anyways.
We're doing it anyways. So pretty much just to give a quick lowdown about what this podcast is, it's sort of a little history about Devils players, and what exactly we're trying to do is maybe focus on the Devils players you kind of know, but you kind of don't.
Yeah, there's a lot right now about current Devils players and kind of what they do. You get the interviews, you get the kind of their side of it, coach's side of it, and then kind of go more in depth. But we want to kind of focus more on the Devils players you may not know, but are interesting and important to the history of the Devils themselves. So you're not going to see a Scott Stevens, unless it's a special Christmas episode. You're not going to see a Martin Brodeur. We're going to try to focus more on players who made an impact that may not be as apparent until you look deeper into it. I mean, we may do a couple current players here and there just to switch things up a little bit, but for right now, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, and that's what I'm thinking too. So we decided to go pretty...
little obscure here.
A little obscure, a little hipstery.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. When you told me this guy, I was like, I don't know who that is.
Yeah, and I kind of know him from stories from hearing from my dad. So yeah, the first guy we're going to talk about is... I almost forgot what his name was. Tommy Albelin.
Tommy Albelin, number 6. Andy Greene before Andy Greene.
Andy Greene before Andy Greene. So he is from Sweden, I believe.
Stockholm, Sweden.
He is from Stockholm, Sweden. He was a defenseman who was drafted by the Quebec Nordiques.
Who are no longer around, for those of you.
Who are no longer here. They're now known as the Colorado Avalanche.
That's going quite swell for them.
That's pretty... Yeah.
He was a left-handed shot who played defense, of course. 6'1", about 200 pounds. I mean, We're going off of this. He's about 53 now, so it's a little bit. I'm sure that's changed. But He originally came from Sweden, of course, playing from about 1982 to 2006. 24-year professional career, almost 1,000 games, 952 to be exact, and that is what we want to be here.
Exactly. But the important stat is he has 2 Stanley Cups, and they are both with the New Jersey Devils. Something that I don't think I actually knew when we first started this.
Not at all.
When I thought about, all right, who has 2 Stanley Cups with the teams, I think it's just Elias.
That would be the first person I would go to.
But Tommy, Mr. Albelin, also holds that. He wasn't with the team throughout the whole entire. He played with the Devils, won the Cup. I think he played like 1 or 2 more seasons, then he went to Calgary for a little bit, and then he came back to the Devils, I believe, via a trade.
Yes, we're going to get a little bit more into more detail about that. But first off, we're going to start off with the section about basically a little bit about Tommy Albelin. And you know what? Who better to talk about Tommy Albelin than Tommy Albelin?
Hi there, my name's Tommy Albelin. I played in NHL for 18 years. I've also coached in the NHL at the NHL level for 4 years with the great coaches like Jacques Lemaire, Adam Oates, Larry Robinson as an assistant coach was with me too. Then I went on to coach in American Hockey League, Albelin Devils, with the coach named Rick Kowalski. 4 years there, and now I've been working as a coach for 8 years total.
Well, that was Tommy Albelin himself. Not that we actually got that. That is from him himself. It's maybe one day we can get some of these players on here to actually talk about themselves.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Oh, this is going to be awful because there's a lot of Swedish names, and I am not good at pronouncing them.
If we want, we can just kind of do the quick highlights of this. So basically, Albelin played in Sweden, as most people born in Sweden would do.
He played in Division 2.
He played in Div 2, which actually, current Devil, Jesper Bratt, was also from Div 2.
Yeah, so that just goes to show, like, we should probably start scouting there a little bit more.
Yeah, we probably should start scouting a little bit more. Obviously, when you hear Div 2, it's not exactly Div 1, so it's not the most prestigious of leagues, but still a very competitive league. You're still playing up against full-grown adults.
And he was playing at the age of 16.
In Div 2.
In Div 2. So he started out there before moving to, I hate these names, During Gardens IF in the SHL. He did that from 1982 to 1987, playing in the SHL. In 149 games played, putting up 30 goals and 30 assists for 60 points. While in the playoffs, 20 games played, 3 goals, 2 assists for 5 points. They won the SHL championship in 1982, as long as winning the silver medal, which essentially their second, in 1984.
Okay. And then he also played a little bit for the World Junior team. Had some success there. He won a silver and a gold medal, both in 1985 and 1986, respectively. And in 30 games played, he put up 10 points. He was a very stay-at-home defenseman. He wasn't exactly an offensive defenseman.
And you wouldn't know that from the stat line. Seeing 30 goals, 30 assists, you would think more of an offensive-minded player. But that is not why he got drafted. He got drafted more for his defensive prowess, and that's where he evolved and kind of stayed there. And we're talking about the World Junior Championships right here. And this is not the first time that's going to come up. That's going to come up later, but we'll get into that a little bit later.
Yeah. So then after he finished his whole entire junior career, he gets drafted. He was drafted in the 8th round, 156 overall by the Quebec Nordiques.
152nd overall.
152nd.
Because we're all about accuracy here.
We're all about accuracy. So he was an 8th round pick.
Yeah, that's we don't even have that round anymore.
Yeah, I know. That round is now no longer here.
That would mean undrafted in today's NHL.
Mm-hmm.
But he went to the Quebec Nordiques.
And in his first year, 60 games played, he put up 26 points.
Put up 26 points. And do you think the split is 13-13? No, it wasn't.
We have a stat sheet in front of us to let us know.
Yeah, we're not remembering this off the top of our heads. It is 3 goals, 23 assists.
Mm-hmm.
But that was, basically where he was getting his feet wet, had a pretty good season, kind of more establishing himself. His first year is 1987. So he got drafted in 83, didn't play his first year until 87. But during that time, in 1986, playing for Team Sweden in the Canada Cup, 6 games played, 2 goals, 1 assist for 3 points. So he was on the world stage, and I think that 1986 year kind of gave him a little bit more attention, a little bit more like, hey, this guy, he might be ready for the big club. They brought him up in 1987, and he played for the Quebec Nordiques, as we said, so put up a good amount of points for rookie. Only 60 games played, 26 points. It's not half bad.
Yeah. So after having a really good rookie campaign, Tommy's world kind of got turned upside down because in 1988 he was traded to the team that he would be with, and you would kind of come to know him as, with the New Jersey Devils. He got traded for future considerations, which became the 1989 4th-round pick left wing Nicholas Anderson, who, 165 games played, put up 82 points. Compared to Albelin's career, that's
24 years.
24 years, and I think he put up around 200 points, I think. I might not know that off the top of my head.
He put off a fair amount of points. I think it's...
yeah.
I mean, it depends if you're talking just about Devils. I mean, he played 952 games.
Yeah.
So in general, I want to say off the Devils, about 380 games, I think it's 379, 24 goals, 107 assists for 131 points. He did play for the Utica Devils and the Albany River Rats back when they were called the Albany River Rats.
Yep.
He had a little bit more success there, 29 games played, 8 goals, 10 assists, 18 points. But when he first came to the New Jersey Devils, he was traded from the Quebec Nordiques. It was a little bit of a kind of, here, take this pick, and we're going to take him. He hadn't really become a staple in the lineup by any means at that point.
Mm-hmm. So, yep, and then pretty much from 1988 until, 1994, he was almost just kind of there.
He split time between the Utica Devils and the New Jersey Devils.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, by no means did he come up and light the world on fire, but he was stable on the backside. I mean, with the exception of the first year that he played in the NHL, he never had a season where he didn't post a positive plus minus or even an even. I think he had an even in a year or two.
Yeah.
But he only had 1 year when he posted a minus, and you know what that minus was? -1.
Yeah.
So
when you
pretty
think
stable.
of defensemen, I think plus minus can be a pretty good stat of telling you how they do. I know sometimes the situations might say plus minus is kind of a bad stat to compare a defenseman, but a defenseman who's positive, they're doing their job.
You're not getting positive as a defenseman by basically crapping the bed. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. So then pretty much, Albelin plays his career. He was here in 95. He helped the Devils reach the Stanley Cup Finals. He put up some points in the playoffs too. So in the 95 playoffs, he put up 8 points, which for a stay-at-home defenseman, it's really good. And when you think about the defense they had Stevens, Danico, Niedermeyer. Those are the 3 defensemen you instantly think of when you think of that 95 Cup team.
Yeah, so basically the top 3 out of that top 6, you're not cracking that.
Yeah, exactly.
You are not cracking that lineup. So.
But Albelin was that 4th, 5th guy. And he just kind of did what was asked of him.
He did the third line duties, but he could slot in on the second. He could slot in on the first line. He didn't look out of place in the first line, but he just kind of got the job done. He wasn't flashy about it. He just helped stabilize that back end because you need that defensive depth in order to get a Stanley Cup championship, especially in those years. You want to make sure you're stable in the back. I mean, as the Devils, we've always built goalie out.
Yeah.
And you want to make sure you have that. 95 Stanley Cup champions. His best year actually coming in 1988 when he posted 31 points in 46 games played at a .67 point per game average. For a stay-at-home defenseman, you're not going to get much better than that.
Yeah, exactly.
At least around that time. But as we found out later, he did play in the World Cup. I do want to point that at 1995-96, played for Sweden. 4 games played, 1 goal for 1 point, had no assists. But, playing in the World Cup, if you're getting picked for that and you're second line, third line on a team, that just shows what type of defensive depth we had on that team in the 95 Cup team.
Tommy wins the Stanley Cup with the Devils. And then the next year, the Devils don't make the playoffs, but during that time in 1996, he is traded to the Calgary Flames. They also included Cale Hughes and Jocelyn Lemieux, and they in return got Phil Housley and Dan Casimir, and that was it. So really,
I mean, it wasn't really that much. I mean, Phil Housley, who was a former 6th overall pick in 1982, only played 22 games with the Devils, 1 goal, 15 assists. And Dan Casimir was a round 10, 201st overall. Never played a single game with the Devils, but did play on the River Rats, 17 games played, 0 goals, 4 assists.
So basically, the Devils traded away Albelin, and they got nothing, really.
They got nothing. It was more of a, we gotta, we're gonna move on. We're gonna try to get something back. I mean, I believe at the time they were, looking to try to get some, help up front, but it just never really materialized.
Yeah, so Albelin went into Calgary. He had a pretty good career there. He played there for 6 years. 339 games played, 71 points, mostly assists, about 59, which is pretty good. And he wore the A for a little bit, too, which was also just showing his leadership abilities.
Yep, and I believe, what was that, 1996?
That was in 1996 he wore the A.
1996. He wound up playing in the World Championship for Sweden in the 1996-97 year. 11 games played, 1 goal, 3 assists. They won the silver medal, actually wound up losing to Canada.
Which is, pretty impressive when you consider Canada is the juggernaut of the hockey world.
Stacked.
It's stacked. They're still stacked.
They're always stacked.
They're always stacked. And then he would represent Sweden at the Olympic Games at Nagano. Correct? I believe that's how you say it.
I believe that's how you say it.
Sure, we'll go with that. But Sweden did not do very well. They finished 5th. And then on July 5th, 2001, Albelin rejoined the Devils.
He came back home. He wound up signing in free agency, actually. He wanted to come back. I just believe after getting let go by Calgary, the Devils were good to him, so he decided to come back. I mean, at that time, I believe we were still pretty much contenders.
Yeah, well, we had just come off winning our second cup. So the Devils were coming off a cup victory. Stevens, Niedermeyer, Danica, they're still playing very good, but obviously they're starting to get a little bit up there in age. I think we had Rafalski at that time. Rafalski had to definitely be in there. He has 1 cup with the Devils.
Yeah.
I'll put my reputation on the line for that one.
Whatever that is.
So they bring back Albelin, who once again he just kind of steps into the role of what he did when he was here in '95. He was just that. I'm going to come in, I'm going to play the game, I'm going to do what's asked of me, and I'm just going to do it well.
Yeah, I mean, he did spend a little time in the AHL during that first year, but then found his feet. I mean, at that point, though, he was more of an extra. I mean, kind of third-line defense.
Yeah.
But, he could fill in, and that's honestly what we needed from him at the time.
Yeah, exactly. And then he was there for the 2003 Cup. He had a playoff goal, I believe, in the first round against Tampa Bay.
No, I thought it might have been the second round, third game, possibly.
Second round, third game. As
Might
if we almost have like an audio clip, which we could play right now.
Bill Murray did a wise thing, just grabbing him and getting him in there. But he's got a new helmet for this hockey game.
Oh! Score! It's Tommy Albelin from the point! Off the clean face-off win by the Devils, and 4:15 in, New Jersey takes the 1-0 lead.
Wow, wasn't that special?
That was quite special. Actually, we have another audio clip of the man himself describing his thought process on that exact goal, which we will cut to now.
No.
Yeah, New Jersey won the draw back to Smellick right point. He fed Tommy Albelin a pass across the blue line. And now you see a lot of traffic going on right circle there. I think that's Pascal Riome that has I think it's Daniel Alfredson in a little battle. And now I'm electing to shoot, and the goalie can't see anything. And I think it's I don't know who the little Devils player is, but it's a good screen in front, so the puck through. See, the goalie can't see anything from this angle. His view is blocked, and you got to get the shot through.
All right, and now we're back from that. We are keeping it consistent with our audio here. So after the 2003 Cup, Albelin comes back for one more year, but then in 2004 he announces he wants to retire, but the Devils bring him back in December of 2005, abbreviating his retirement after he had practiced with the team as an unsigned player for nearly half the season, and then he finished out his final year in 2006 playing for the Devils.
But that really has to show how much he liked playing with the Devils, where he was actually basically an unsigned player, a retired player, and for half an entire season still worked out with the Devils, still practiced with them, still trained with them, so much so that he came out of retirement to continue to play for them.
Yeah, and I think that just speaks volumes of the type of general manager Lou was. Lou believed in loyal players, and Albelin was a loyal player for the Devils. You know, he didn't leave the team to go try to get a big contract. They traded him, and then they brought him back, meaning that they really did believe in him, and they liked him, and he rewarded them with just pretty much solid play.
Yeah, I mean, he was a solid player, which actually led to after the Devils.
Yes.
Where in July 25th of 2007, Albelin was hired by the New Jersey Devils as an assistant coach, head coach Brent Sutter. It was his first NHL coaching job, and I think he came in for about 3 years as the assistant.
Yes.
Yeah, he actually when he first came, 4 years. Wasn't 3 years. 3 years. Yeah, he started in there. I mean, at the time, we were still killing it. 45, 29, 7, 99 points. I mean, we had a +9 goal differential. Wound up coming second in the division, fourth in the conference, sixth in the league. Doing pretty good. Next year, wound up going up to 35+ goal differential, getting 106 points, becoming first in the division, third in the conference, fifth in the league. And then his last year here, 103 points, +31. Went down a little bit, still 48, 27, 7. First in the division, second in the conference, sixth in the league.
Mm-hmm. And you have to think at that time, too, the defense that's there, Niedermayer's gone, Danico's gone, Stevens is gone. You know.
So, I mean, all of this, he's working with newer players. He's kind of, just out there trying to, just try to be the guy or even just stabilize. I mean, he's a veteran at this point, and he can talk to these defensemen and be like, look, I've been there. I know what it's like. This is what you need to do.
Yeah. And actually, it's kind of interesting here. He did coach Andy Greene as Andy started to come up in the league.
Yeah. I mean, they both wore number 6. They both played a very similar game. So I'm sure maybe early on in Andy's career, that helped shape him, that type of coaching and that style of the stay-at-home defenseman and just being defensively responsible.
Yep. And then he would go on to the Vancouver Olympics. He was the assistant coach for Sweden, who Sweden ended up they ended up going 3-1. I don't know if they medaled in Vancouver.
No, they medaled. They didn't medal. They came, I believe, in 4th at the time. I found this really interesting because while doing research for this, they went 3-1. They had 12 goals for, 6 goals against. They blanked Germany 2-0. Went up against Belarus 4-2, won that. Blanked Finland 3-0, and then lost to Slovakia in the playoff round 3-4, knocked out of the tournament.
Jeez.
Having a +6 goal differential and not being able to even really go for a medal there. I think they might have even have placed 5th outside because I don't even think they were in for the bronze game.
Yeah.
So to
and
have
you have to
that
think
type
too.
of game.
And you have to think who they had on that team. They obviously had the Sedins. Alverson was there. Like they had Lundqvist. They had a pretty good team, and it's just I guess it's just how Olympic hockey works. Unfortunately, you lose to one team, it can ruin your whole entire Olympics.
Exactly. I mean, you do what you can. You can't ask for more than that.
And then ultimately, when Sutter got fired, Albelin ended up going down to Albany, where he was the assistant coach for many years.
Yeah. And they needed it. That first year, 2010, 2011, they had 70 points, 32-42, 1 overtime loss, 5 shootout losses, -66.
Yeah.
Goal differential, dead last in division, conference, and league. Just god awful.
Yeah. And then ultimately, in his last year of being an assistant coach was the 2013-2014 season. To give you an idea of how well they progressed, they finished 2nd in their division, 5th in their conference, 10th in the league, and their goal differential was +27. So they went from -66 to +27. Granted, they got some more talent down there to help them with that, but also it just comes down to the coaching, and Albelin was part of that. So he's been a really solid development coach for the Devils. And then ultimately, when 2014, Scott Stevens moved on from being an assistant coach for the team, and then Pete DeBoer came in, and Albelin was brought back up to be an assistant coach. So it really worked well for our young prospects at the time, because it's like, okay, they've been in Albany now for a couple years. Now they're coming up to the big club, and they have a coach who knows their game already there.
Exactly. They're comfortable with the system. They know, and he knows how to talk to them. He knows how to be around these players. I mean, he coached them down in Albany, and then you bring them up to this stage, and it's kind of like, I'm comfortable with these guys. I know what they're doing. And at this point, he's had a bit of coaching experience. He's been around. He's been in the international stage, World Juniors, under 20. He's been all over the place. So you're applying that knowledge to these younger prospects and then, help them make the transition essentially.
Yeah. So then ultimately he would finish out his career with the Devils as an assistant coach with Pete DeBoer. And then when Pete DeBoer moved on, so did Albelin. And now he is currently a pro scout for the Toronto Maple Leafs. So he has followed Lou.
Loyalty.
He's very loyal to the Lou. So that's pretty much like his whole entire career in terms of the Devils. He would go on to be an assistant coach for, you have here in the thing, he went to Switzerland?
Yeah, he actually was the assistant coach for Switzerland. He went in the Deutschland Cup. He was on the under-20 squad for the World Junior Championship and the international stage. And for Switzerland, the main club for the World Championship and international stage. He then went on for Switzerland the next year, which is this year actually, for the World Championship and international stage. I don't believe he's assistant coach for the under-20 team anymore.
Okay.
But he still went to Switzerland. So much so, it's not even like his home country in Sweden where he's playing for them because, that's where he played and all that. Switzerland liked him enough that they held him on and they brought him on.
Mm-hmm. So I'm just actually curious because this is off the cuff. So was he then when Nico was playing there, you think?
I'm not sure. I'd have to check the rosters on that.
Yeah, because it would just be kind of like a cool connection. Like, obviously he's a pro scout for the Maple Leafs, but if he was the scout for the Devils and then he was coaching Nico,
we could probably just look it up.
We could probably just look it up.
I mean, we do control the audio.
We do control the audio. Just cut it. It was a stupid point. And then, so then after everything he did with his coaching, he got inducted into the Swedish Hockey Hall of Fame in 2017. Where he joined players like Peter Forsberg and Mats Sundin. Obviously, a very worthy title. He's probably one of the better Swedish defensemen. I mean, when you think of Swedish defensemen, the first name obviously that comes to mind is this guy named Erik Karlsson.
Yeah.
He kind of comes to mind.
You may have heard of him.
You may have heard of him, but then you got a player like Johnny Oduya. I'm an arrogant American, so I don't really know any other Swedish defensemen, but ultimately from what Albelin was through basically just kind of watching his highlights, and I talked to my dad. My dad's basically like the historian for me. And he pretty much said, yeah, he was just a good, solid defender. He didn't need much from him, but he gave you everything that you needed.
And really, at the end of the day, that's all you can really ask for. Making that transition from the ice to the bench in terms of going from being a player and being able to successfully transition to a coach and showing the prospects and the players, that I'm going to use the experience I gained here coming up through the system, being drafted in a low draft pick, mind you, and then coming in for someone like Andy Greene, who was undrafted.
Yeah.
Showing him that you don't need that first round pick moniker to be successful in the league.
Yeah, exactly. So, as you mentioned at the top of the episode, he was an 8th round pick, which ultimately is now an unsigned free agent. So I thought it was really interesting to do him first, just because he is basically the type of defenseman Andy Greene is now. Andy has been a little bit more successful in terms of points.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think Greene would maybe be the better player on paper. But overall, the two of them have just been solid defensemen for the Devils, and that's the reason why we kind of wanted to bring him on or talk about him. I guess we didn't bring him on. He's not here. You thought he was with the audio. But.
Yeah. Maybe we could have got him if we took a little bit. I can get his Skype number.
Yeah.
Maybe contact his son.
Eric, do you have any final thoughts for Tommy Albelin?
Well, I spent a lot of time researching him, and honestly, before this episode, I know zero about this guy. And going through and reading about it and watching his career and just seeing what he did, I mean, he's an under-the-radar guy. You're not going to find a lot of highlight reel clips about him. You're not going to find a lot of interviews. You're not going on Sports Illustrated and, basically having those conversations like, what type of applesauce do you like? You're not going to get those from a guy like him. You're going to basically hear about what he wants to do, and even to this day, he still wants to coach. He still wants to get out there and show what he knows and help younger players come up. For somebody who's, in their early 50s, late 50s, still has the love for the game that he does is very important and really shows that this is a guy that you may not know, but is an interesting guy to learn about.
Yeah. So that's going to wrap up this first episode of Know Your Devils. If you listen to the whole entire thing, we really appreciate it. This is kind of a new format of what we're trying. We're going to be doing this. We don't really have a schedule yet, but we have like 4 episodes planned out that we're going to record. We're going to throw them out there, see how people react. And yeah, we're going to do it from that. Do we want to say who the next player is going to be?
It could be a mystery. You might not know. I mean, there's a conversation right now. We might go a little bit older. We might go a current Devil.
Yes.
I believe that was the conversation we were having earlier today about who we wanted to go. And it would not be a player in the top 9. Let's put it this way. If I were to tease a little bit, if we went with that current player. So
It would, yes.
that's a little bit of a tease. We don't know, though. We have a few ideas. But, depending on reactions and kind of if it's one. I know there's a lot of podcasts out there that talk about a lot of current things. I mean,
Yeah, like I said, we're trying something a little bit different, but yeah, we'll definitely probably talk about the Devils currently too. Maybe do like a quick segment at the end.
yeah, or we can just get drunk.
Or we could just get drunk. All right, so I've been Ed.
This is Eric.
And thank you for listening to the podcast, guys. Bye.